Hey everybody, welcome to part 2 of my video series where I'm documenting basically my D&D builds and how I'm running this campaign for Tyranny of Dragons. Last time I showed you guys a really cool board I'm doing, and you can see that there's been just a little bit of updates on there. You can see I left some paint out there from a project I'm currently working on. We have the big dragon who's going to be circling over the game board this entire time. Name escapes me right at the second. But he's out there. He's going to get a cool little tower to perch upon. I'm working on that right now. And over here, you see I have Tiamat being primed currently. Yes, I am using Rust-Oleum Black, but whatever. You can't blame me. So anyway, what we have right here is I wanted to show you a little bit of my prep work that I do for the campaign. All right, so this is the green book, what I like to call it. It's just a journal that I bought at a used bookstore. What I do is I basically take parts of Tyranny of Dragons, I photocopy them, and I cut and paste to my needs, and then I glue them into the book. Usually I'll have little notes scattered throughout there, highlights, plans, things like that. But here we are on chapter 6 with Castle Neeritar. I'm going to keep saying it, and it's going to keep being wrong. Neeritar. I think that's how I'll pronounce it. So basically what I do is I have it highlighted out here. And one thing that's a little bit different is I'm really not a big fan of random encounters. I know random encounters are generally a big part of the game, but I like my encounters to not be as random. So for example, at the end of chapter 5, we are at the roadhouse, and I'll see if I can find a picture of my roadhouse and I can insert it into the video so you guys can see it. But we were here. My guys had just beaten the... I had switched it up so that they fought Bog Luck instead of just a random cultist. So they had just beaten Bog Luck, and they're probably about to jump into the hole to chase after the lizard men who were stealing the cargo. But what I am going to do is I'm actually going to have the remaining cultists fight my little crew, so give them kind of just like a beginning action sequence. It's a good way to start off the a game, in my opinion, is to have a nice little action sequence. So right here, you can see I have already rolled initiative for the cultists and the cult fanatics, which will be there. Just one thing in particular that I want to point out is that this was based off the challenge rating from D&D Beyond. I kind of put this together for 5 players at level 5. Now the problem is that my players will generally, here's 3 of them right here. My players love to drop out at the last second. I will usually maintain it if we have at least 4 players. I have between 6 and 4 players. So I built this around 5. And of course, as of right now, I have all 6 players coming in. So what I might do is I might switch out a couple of these low-end ones, these cultists right here, with maybe a different cult fanatic. Fanatics are a little bit higher challenge rating, so that's why I'm adding them in. And if I do need to add some more in at the end to improve the challenge rating, I'll generally just pop them in for the bottom. I don't like having more than 12 enemies on the table at one time, because at that point it becomes too hard to control. So I might have them either come in waves, or I have them all come in at once. So in this situation, they're all going to be in at once. I have added this little tiny mock playboard, which I made in Excel, of course. And it kind of just sets up how I'm going to put the characters, where the terrain is going to be, what's it going to look like. So that way I have a good idea of how I can set up the board quickly so we can get the encounter done fast. You can see here's my players, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The C is the cultist, the CF is the cultist fanatic. And then on the other page, I generally will print out the stats for what I'm going to have them fight, so that way it's a little faster. I'll usually write in the spells on the bottom, so that way I can reference it really quickly as I'm playing. I am usually one of the bigger problems that I tend to see in games is that, especially in random encounters in these earlier D&D supplements, is that the random encounters are very, very static. Like, oh, look, you're going to fight 10 bullywugs. I don't want to fight 10 bullywugs. That's boring. They have basically the same attack each, and the players can kind of get used to that. So what I'm doing now is instead of like, oh, just 8 cultists, I'm going to throw in a couple of fanatics. Or I might throw in, you know, maybe an ogre or something, just to kind of spice it up for myself as the DM to play, and give my players something a little bit more of a challenge on that end. So instead of the random encounters, let me get back. For this beginning part, as they're traveling to the castle, as you can see there, we are basically supposed to have these random encounters. Now, we are not a play group that basically plays once a week or we play once a month. We try to get in at least once a month, but it might be once every 2 months on general average. So I usually like to plan this out a little bit ahead. In this one in particular, we're going to have the cultists, which are going to be right here. And then the next thing is some lizard folk. We're going to have the lizard folk right here. You can see on this one I have water here, and I have some bases set out for like little rafts that we're going to have these tents on, and these tents are right here. I put them out here just to kind of remind my team that we're going to have some fights on this little lizard man camp. Lizard folk, sorry, they're not lizard men, TM. What we see here, I've added in here, we got lizard folk, we got scale shields, and giant lizards, which are pretty cool. Add those in. You know, the giant lizards are not really high challenge rating. The lizard folk are actually pretty beefy, especially with their 2 attacks. And the scale shields are even cooler. One thing that I do like is if you see on the shaman over here, they have some fun stuff, including spell casting. But the scale shields, they get some real beefy attacks, and they have a decent armor class and hit points, so they're going to be kind of hard to fight. Next up, we got some bullywugs. I want to make sure that I got some bullywugs in there because they're going to play a big part in the next part of this chapter. So I want to give my players a taste. I got a little bullywug encounter here. And this includes giant frogs. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, bullywug croakers and giant frogs. The croakers I'm looking forward to trying out because they get to sing. So I'm hoping to get a little bit of a rainbow connection with some frogs here. Then we have some Yuan Ti. I saw this in the random encounter chart, and I was like, awesome. Yuan Ti, there's something different. We haven't played with them before. And I have a ton of Naga models from Legends of the Five Rings. And I'll be posting those on the Instagram as soon as they're done. So that way you guys can see some of my Yuan Ti. I do have some Purebloods and Malicens that are going to be there. These are their stats, which I've already printed out, kind of gone over. But one thing I wanted to show was that this is kind of the map on which we're going to be basing what our movement off of. So a lot of it's already there. It's not quite one-to-one exactly as we're looking at on the board, as you can see here. This is the lake, a big center lake. This is a river, and you can see over here we just have a river. We got a bridge. Over on here, the bridge is here. This is a hidden path that I put in there. These are just some random puddles, as you can see. One thing that if you are 3D printing, printable scenery makes these little tiny puddles here, which are fantastic for if you have a little bit on the ends of your spools and you want to use up the rest of your PLA on there. You just print out a bunch of them and you could just have a ton of them on the board to make a nice murky playboard on there. But yeah, and then some of these dots, which you can't really see because it's in black and white, but they're a little bit darker than the others. These are going to be some graveyards, which I'm going to put out there, and these are going to be just some encounter points for when my guys are actually playing. I do have some boons and some riddles that are going to be on there that I have posted on there. One thing that I did get recently was a book from Half Price Books, which I had never seen before. It's called Astonishing Random Tables. Now, the Half Price Books by me has a bunch of these Game Master books for relatively cheap, about $10 a piece. And really, I've been ignoring them, but I don't think players should sleep on them because there's a lot of fun stuff in here that I really enjoy. The books aren't very well put together, but they do have a bunch of like cool crap that you could just pull out and put into your game. So I wouldn't necessarily sleep on them. You know, there's stuff for curses, stuff for world building that I really appreciate. So I picked up the Random Tables book, and I picked up Traps, Puzzles, and Dungeons, just because I want to make my game a little bit more like classic D&D. So I need some more traps. I need some more puzzles. I need riddles. these are things that I'm kind of looking for at this time. So I really think that they're a decent buy. Plus, I also got this little book from them too. I think I paid $8 for this. It's Boons and Banes. It's a deck, and I really love decks. I'm a big Gewgaws and Baubles fan. It comes with a little book that kind of explains all of the boons, and then you get a deck so that you could pick from them. It kind of explains like air affinity. So if a player picks air affinity, you can go to the book, look up air affinity, and it tells you what it is. So it's kind of like a tarot deck. I'm going to play with it a little bit this weekend just to kind of see. Don't tell my players, but there will be a hag or witch who will be giving them a riddle, and then I'll be giving them a boon or a curse based upon their reaction and how they do. Some other things, I did show you guys my tracker. I found out I'm going to have my 6th player, so I got to have a 6th one built up. And one of the things that I did also like to use is I have this deck of cards that I got with the D&D like extras box, is a D&D Essentials box, but it does have initiative on there as well, and these are also good for my players. And on top of that too, these are just like low-level magic items, which are really nice just to kind of pull out of my butt if I need to. I also used, there's a D&D website that I like using, not D&D Beyond, D&D Essentials, I think is what it might be. No, that's not it. That's the box set. But I will put a link for it in the video that I really like using. It has some random tables that I enjoy using as well. So that's about it for this edition. I'm going to be playing the game this weekend, so hopefully you guys can get a chance to get some after-action reports. I can maybe show you guys some of the highlights. But aside from that, thanks for tuning in.